Sanctions or sucking up? U.S. Grovels in the Ukraine. This is by Tyler Durden on Zero Hedge, authored by Tom Luongo. The United States sent Energy Secretary Rick Perry to the inauguration of the new Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelinsky to announce the sanctions bill on Gazprom's Nord Stream 2 pipeline would pass. I can't tell what's more pathetic at this point, the neocons in Trump's administration thinking that sanctions actually achieve their goals, or using them to suck up to a new president they don't actively control yet. Think about this. Perry goes to Kiev for nothing more than a photo op to assure Zelensky that the U.S. won't abandon the struggle, stick it to the Russians. He does this with no sense of shame or irony after spending 5 years destroying the Ukraine with an ill-advised coup which ushered in the chaos that brought Zelensky to power. Outgoing U.S. puppet Petro Poroshenko was such a disaster that the Ukrainians voted 3-1 to get rid of him in favor of a political neophyte, a nobody, and a television comic. That's how badly the U.S. had mismanaged Ukraine post-coup affairs. And the Russians are supposed to be the bad guys in this scenario? And now Perry is going to virtue signal that the U.S. will sanction Nord Stream 2 to keep their access to Ukraine's highest office. Zelensky may be a neophyte, but he's no stupid either. The U.S. opposition to Nord Stream 2 is mainly for its own purposes, just like its interest in Ukraine is purely selfish. President Trump wants the gas volume slated for Nord Stream 2 to go to U.S. liquid natural gas, LNG, exporters first. Ukraine is not all that important in the end to him. Stopping Nord Stream 2 is supposed to do two things: force Russia to the bargaining table with Naftogaz, the Ukrainian state gas transit company, and cut a new deal since the old one is expiring at the end of this year. It's also meant to force Germany to buy more expensive U.S. liquid natural gas. However Trump can raise Germany's costs, he will. This, to him, is the way to fix from them stealing from the U.S. by building car factories in Indiana and Tennessee and selling us BMWs, Volkswagens, and Porsches. Germany is finally standing up for itself somewhat, adamantly declaring that it is not a colony of the United States, even though, let's get real, it is. Talk is cheap, however, now is the time to act independently on major policy decisions. Trump sending Perry to Zelensky's inauguration should tell you all you need to know about how important Ukraine is in this calculus. It isn't important. Because if it were important, either Trump himself would have gone, or Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, not a cipher like Rick Perry. And the truth is that Zelensky doesn't need leverage to cut a deal with Gazprom. Gazprom has said on multiple occasions it would be happy to renegotiate the gas contract. It would also do as a favor to Angela Merkel and the European Union to soothe fears over keeping Ukraine destabilized. The problem was, it was Poroshenko that refused to come to the table at the behest of his U.S. masters. Moreover, Ukraine's energy future is bleak now that Russia has embargoed Ukraine on oil and coal imports, including reselling through Belarus, which has also put Belarusian President Lukashenko on notice that Moscow is tired of his games as well. Zelensky's first move should be to sit down with Vladimir Putin at a moment's notice, but he can't do that until he has the backing of the parliament. This is why he dissolved parliament immediately upon taking office, bypassing an attempt to delay such elections until late October. Poroshenko left him multiple poison pills to navigate, but a gas transit contract with Gazprom is the easiest thing to get done. But for Putin, this means Merkel putting to bed any more doubts about the final construction of Nord Stream 2. No gas transit deal with Ukraine gave German Chancellor Angela Merkel the excuse to keep all dialogue frozen on a number of issues, including ending sanctions against Russia. But she's facing a major change in her political pool in Brussels in a week, as the European parliamentary elections could shift the balance of power enough to see any sanctions existing this summer vetoed. Tomorrow are the elections. Now, and I'm here, and I'm going to be voting here in Europe. Now, and with Germany's economy faltering badly, and the markets finally waking up to the changes politically on the horizon, Merkel is rapidly reaching the end of her current policy quagmire with respect to Russia and the US. She will have to break the deadlock over Nord Stream 2, and time is running out before Ukraine finds themselves unable to import the energy needed to keep the heat on this winter. And that brings me to Denmark. The Danes are foot-dragging an environmental permit due to obvious pressure behind the scenes by the US and UK to halt the last miles of the pipeline, which is now 2/3 complete. The delay is again temporary, as Denmark has no good reasons to not issue the permit except the worst kind of politics. The new sanctions only have power if the Danes continue refusing the permit, because you will notice the sanctions are not going to affect the major partners of Nord Stream 2, the 5 big oil and gas majors who put up half the funds. It's the pipe layers and insurance companies doing the actual construction, because that's all the US dares sanction. Just like the empty threats against Chinese state oil companies for buying Iranian oil, the US knows there is a limit to who and what they can sanction without collapsing the world economy. Lastly, never underestimate the long-term effect here on the US and the further use of the dollar. Right now, the dollar is a major game in town. It's vital to the survival of a lot of companies and banks, but it is also ultimately replaceable in the kinds of businesses under the threat of sanctions here. Everywhere you look, Trump is lashing out at whoever he thinks he can gain leverage over to force concessions for US interests. But all he's doing is making it clear to everyone that the dollar now carries unacceptable political risk to carry on their company's balance sheet, and it will only further lower the barrier, both economically and politically, to shift away from using it, leaving the US even more isolated. And the fact that this is happening over such a small thing like a pipeline and a failed state like Ukraine makes everyone involved look desperate and pathetic. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.